for the first time in over 70 years. The United States created a new military branch in December 2019. Not for land, not for sea, not even for air, but for space. This marked the birth of the Space Forces. Meanwhile, China landed on the far side of the moon on January 3, 2019, a historic first that marked a major milestone in space exploration. Russia, on its part, has tested anti-satellite weapons, indicating a new era of military competition in space. And private companies are now racing to space to mine asteroids for resources. And as our activities expand beyond Earth, a new term has our vocabulary. Cislunar space, the vast region encompassing Earth, the Moon, and everything in between. What we're witnessing isn't just exploration, it's not just scientific discovery. It's the beginning of the most significant military expansion in human history into the final frontier. Hey there, welcome to the channel. Today we're diving into how the militarization of cislunar space is unfolding, why it matters, and most importantly, what it means for the welfare of everyone on Earth and beyond. When we talk about cislunar space, we're talking about approximately 385,000 kilometers of strategic territory. To put that in perspective, that's about 42 times the diameter of Earth itself. This vast region is becoming the new high ground of military strategy. For decades, space militarization was limited to Earth orbit, spy satellites, missile early warning systems, and communication networks. But something fundamental has changed. The Moon is no longer just a scientific curiosity. It's becoming a strategic asset. Water ice at the lunar poles could be converted to rocket fuel. Rare earth elements could supply advanced technologies. And the ability to monitor or control traffic between Earth and the Moon could determine who becomes the dominant power in space. And these are happening right now. In 2021, China and Russia announced plans for a joint lunar base. The U.S. Artemis program, meanwhile, is focused on returning humans to the Moon and building a long-term American presence there. These aren't just scientific missions. They're steps toward establishing strategic footholds in what military strategists now call the cislunar theater. Let's now break down who the major players are and what they're capable of. United States. The United States has reorganized its space capabilities under its Space Force and Space Command. They have also launched the X-37B, a reusable robotic spaceplane capable of remaining in orbit for years at a time. This robot's missions are classified, but experts believe it can maneuver to inspect and potentially interfere with other satellites. China has demonstrated remarkable progress in its space program. The change missions to the Moon, the Tiangong space station, and anti-satellite capabilities show a comprehensive approach to space dominance. In 2021, U.S. military officials revealed that China had tested a hypersonic weapon system designed to evade missile defenses by orbiting the globe before striking its target, Russia. Russia maintains significant space capabilities despite economic constraints. Its anti-satellite tests have generated international concerns. In 2021, Russia destroyed one of its own satellites with a ground-launched missile, creating thousands of pieces of space debris and forcing astronauts on the International Space Station to take shelter. But it's not just the traditional powers anymore. India, Japan, the European Space Agency, and even private companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and others are developing capabilities that have military applications. The result is a rapidly evolving strategic environment where the rules aren't clearly defined. So why should you care about military activities hundreds of thousands of kilometers away? Because space has become the invisible backbone of our daily lives and our global economy. GPS satellites guide your car and synchronize our electrical grids and financial systems. Weather satellites help us predict natural disasters. Communications satellites connect remote regions and enable global internet access. Earth observation satellites monitor climate change and agricultural production. All of these systems are potentially vulnerable. A successful attack on key satellites could disable global positioning, disrupting transportation, agriculture, and emergency services. Interrupt financial transactions worth trillions of dollars. Cut off communications to entire regions. And blind early warning systems for missiles and other threats. Beyond these immediate threats, there's a more profound concern: the potential for conflict in space to consume resources that could otherwise address pressing human needs. Global military space spending now exceeds $50 billion annually, and that's a conservative estimate that doesn't include classified programs. That's roughly equivalent to what it would cost to eliminate global hunger for a year. Provide clean water access to everyone on Earth, and also vaccinate every child worldwide against preventable diseases. And this is just the beginning. As militarization extends further into cislunar space, these costs will inevitably rise. One of the most concerning aspects of this new space race is that it's occurring in a legal environment that wasn't designed for military competition. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty, the foundation of international space law, prohibits placing nuclear weapons in orbit and claims of sovereignty on celestial bodies. But this treaty has major gaps. It doesn't prohibit conventional weapons in space, nor military activities on celestial bodies if described as peaceful. It doesn't prohibit testing of weapons against a nation's own satellites, nor does it prohibit the development of dual-use technologies with both civilian and military applications. This legal vacuum creates uncertainty, which in turn drives militarization, as nations seek to protect their assets and interests. The United Nations has attempted to address these issues through the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. But the progress in this regard has been slow. Meanwhile, technological development accelerates, creating new capabilities faster than international laws can adapt. The economics of space militarization tells a complex story about welfare impacts. On one hand, military investments in space drive technological innovation. GPS was originally a military system before becoming essential to the civilian economy. Advanced materials, miniaturized electronics, and new propulsion systems developed for military purposes often find civilian applications. On the other hand, military competition can distort research priorities and limit international cooperation. When technologies are classified for national security reasons, their benefits are restricted. When cislunar infrastructure is built to military specifications, costs rise and accessibility decreases. We're now at a critical juncture where these economic dynamics will determine whether space development benefits a few or many. The Moon's resources could help solve Earth's sustainability challenges. Helium-3 from the lunar surface could potentially power clean fusion reactors. Solar power collected in space and beamed to Earth could provide abundant clean energy. Manufacturing in zero gravity could create new materials impossible to produce on Earth. But if these resources become the focus of military competition rather than cooperative development, their benefits might never reach those who need them most. Now let's look at 3 potential futures for cislunar space and what they mean for human welfare. Scenario 1. The new Cold War. In this scenario, major powers establish military zones of control in cislunar space. Communication between Earth and the Moon occurs through national corridors that are actively monitored and defended. Resources are extracted primarily for national security purposes. International cooperation exists primarily within competing blocs. The welfare impact here is that economic development continues, but benefits are unevenly distributed. Space-derived resources primarily enhance the wealth and power of dominant nations. Military spending increases, diverting resources from social needs. The risk of conflict remains high, creating economic uncertainty. Scenario 2. Regulated commons. In this scenario, nations agree to new treaties that allow military presence but with strict limitations and transparency requirements. Think of it like an updated version of the Artemis Accords. And this establishes clear rules for resource utilization and creates buffer zones around civilian infrastructure. International monitoring is tight, and it ensures compliance. With this, the welfare impact is a more balanced development with wider distribution of benefits. Military spending is constrained by treaties, allowing more resources for social welfare. Technology transfer agreements ensure innovations benefit developing nations. The risk of conflict is reduced but not eliminated. Scenario 3. Demilitarized development. In the most optimistic scenario, nations agreed to fully demilitarize cislunar space. Security is provided by multinational organizations. Resource extraction follows equitable sharing principles. Scientific data is openly available. Military activities are limited to Earth, orbit, and below. Obviously, the welfare impact here would be fully optimized. Maximum resources would be directed toward solving common challenges. Space-derived energy and materials would go a long way in addressing climate change. Global inequality would reduce through coordinated technology transfer. The security dividend from reduced military spending would enable greater social investment. Each of these scenarios represents a choice we're making right now through national policies, international negotiations, and public engagement. Right now, we're at a historic moment. The decisions made in the next decades will establish patterns that may last for centuries. The Artemis program aims to return humans to the moon by 2026. China plans its own crewed lunar landing by 2030. Permanent bases may follow shortly after. The first substantial resource extraction operations are likely before 2035. If militarization dominates this critical period, it may be difficult to reverse the course later. Once capabilities are deployed and strategic positions established, nations rarely voluntarily relinquish them. But there's reason for cautious optimism. Space has a history of transcending terrestrial conflicts. Even at the height of the Cold War, the US and Soviet Union found ways to cooperate in space. The International Space Station represents one of humanity's most successful ongoing international collaborations. New voices are also entering the conversation. Developing nations, private companies, civil society organizations, and academic institutions are increasingly asserting their stake in humanity's space future. This diversification of stakeholders creates new possibilities for innovative governance approaches. The militarization of cislunar space isn't inevitable. It's a choice that will profoundly shape human welfare both on Earth and beyond. Will we reproduce our terrestrial conflicts in the heavens? Or will we find new ways to cooperate in this vast new domain? Will we prioritize national security as narrowly defined, or recognize that true security comes from addressing the common challenges that face all humanity? Will space resources become the privilege of the few or the heritage of all? These aren't just questions for governments or military planners. They're questions for all of us. Because space reflects who we are and who we want to become. What kind of future will we choose? Will the moon become a battleground or a commons? Will cislunar space be filled with weapons or with tools for cooperation? Will we repeat the mistakes of our past or chart a new course for our collective good? The answers depend on what we demand from our leaders, what we invest in, and what vision of the future we embrace. Because the militarization of space isn't just about satellites and rockets and lunar bases. It's about us, about our values, our priorities, and about our future. Look up at the moon tonight, or whenever it appears over you. That pale light has inspired humanity for millennia. Now, for the first time, we have the power to reach it, to use it, and to shape it. The question is, will we use that power wisely? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What roles do you think space should play in our future? Should cislunar space be militarized or demilitarized? And how can we ensure that space development benefits everyone? If you found this video insightful, please like it and subscribe to this channel. Also, consider sharing this with someone who might not have thought about these issues before. Because the future of space belongs to all of us. Thanks for watching.